Hello everyone and welcome to Adam Shah Weekly. So this video is about one of the tweets that I posted a couple of days ago, maybe even yesterday, that iOS developers are afraid of server-side code like cats are afraid of water. Be open-minded and try to learn new frameworks like Node.js, .NET, and don't always rely on Firebase or any other platform. So the idea basically, or why I tweeted this, came from I have a lot of courses on Udemy and I'm doing iOS development courses, or mostly iOS development courses. And sometimes there will be people who will be like, hey, why did you use this Node.js service? Why did you use this? Why did you use that? And even without simply targeting those services, showing them the code, they don't have to understand the code. They just have to interact with it, just like an API. They will say that, oh, no, you should have used just Firebase. And I'm trying to tell you that no. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Firebase. You can definitely use that. But you should also be learning different things, like different frameworks like Node.js, or maybe even Ruby on Rails or .NET Web APIs. Okay, so when we talk about web development or even iOS development, when we talk about services, we're talking about our mobile app that will be communicating with a particular server application. And this is the portion that people replace it with either Firebase or with some other service. Now, this is the portion that I'm saying that you should definitely, as an iOS developer, you should definitely learn how to write server-side code also. Don't be afraid of it. I've seen a lot of iOS developers, the only knowledge that they have is, oh yeah, I know how to use Xcode. Okay, can you create a server using something? No, we don't know. We're just going to use Firebase, or we have a server team that's going to do that. So what I'm suggesting is that if you are fluent in iOS development, if you are fluent in using Xcode and Swift and Objective-C, then try to target this part and learn about server-side implementation using either Node.js, using web APIs, Ruby on Rails, Django. There's so many different frameworks available. This is not like to say that the Firebase is good or bad. I'm not saying that, but Firebase will give you all the features that are part of the Firebase frameworks, and sometimes you are looking for more custom solutions. All right. So Firebase is great, don't get me wrong, but you should always also consider creating your own server and learn the server side skills, because if you want to take your application to a something that Firebase doesn't provide, then what? All right. The other reason of maybe learning about the server-side framework is this website, the Google Graveyard. You can see all of these different things, and the list is actually pretty long. These are different things that are killed by Google. All right, and the list goes on and on. You know, when Google killed Trips, I might be the only customer of Google Trips, but I actually cried because this was not literally cried obviously, but it was like really good app and I used it every single day and I used a lot of Trips. So this was a really bummer for me. All the other things I didn't really care that much about, but when they killed Google Trips, that was when it hit me like, hold on a second. This is just, I mean, Firebase can be next, to be really honest with you. What are the chances of Google killing Firebase? Pretty small. Are there any chances? Absolutely. Remember that Facebook had a very similar product, just like Firebase. If you remember Google, Facebook Parse framework. Now, Facebook Parse is a very, very popular framework. It was a very popular framework, and then it was basically killed. And all of those developers were kind of like left stranded. That okay, what do we do now? What do we do now? All right. So that's why it's always a good idea to learn about the server-side framework. Now the question is, where should you start? Where should you start learning the server-side framework? Because there are a billion of those. Microsoft language, which is C Sharp, it's very similar to Swift language, and you can use .NET Core, and inside .NET Core, there's also Web API, so which is going to allow you to create those RESTful services, and you can return JSON and take in JSON and all that stuff. Now, if you're doing, obviously, iOS development on a Mac, it might be a little bit weird to use these things. I mean, I know that they have Visual Studio for Mac, but last time I checked, it was not that great. but you can still use it, and that's fine. I think the quickest way to start learning about server-side development, and the easiest one at least that I find, is Express, which is a JavaScript framework built on top of Node.js. Now, I know that JavaScript language gets a bad rap. I personally don't really care that much about different languages. I mean, once I need to do something in a particular language, I'll just learn the language. If I need to create a BlackBerry application, I'll go ahead and learn Java and create BlackBerry applications. So I think this is the simplest one that I could find, and they have a pretty good documentation also. So if I go to Hello World, you can see this is only the code that you have to type to return hello world, basically in string format. All right. So this is Express. If I were you, I would start with Express, but I have experience with web APIs also because I've been doing the .NET development for the last 10 years or so. Other frameworks also involve dynamic languages like Ruby on Rails. So this is a great framework for building your backend. Now, if you are into Python, there's a framework called Django that you can use. So you can see that when you are moving away from Swift and you are going and trying to implement the framework yourself and not using Firebase, you do have a lot of different choices. And these are only few choices. I mean, you can write in Go language, you can write in Kotlin, you can write in Java, Spring framework, and so many other frameworks are available for you to learn about server-side development. If you do want to stay in the Swift community, there are some frameworks. Kaitura was a framework from IBM. Unfortunately, it has been killed or it's dead now. So maybe you should be able to use it, but I don't recommend using the products where the original team has decided that this product is dead. So let's close that tab. The other framework is called Vapor. Now, Vapor is a very interesting framework, and I think they are close to releasing, like the Vapor 4 has already been released or it's close to being released. And Vapor is interesting. I have used Vapor 1, Vapor 2, and Vapor 3. Vapor is still new, all right? It's changing. And when you are using server-side frameworks, since server is such an important part of your application, you want to use something that is more mature, that has a very large community around it. So if I say that this is the Vapor community, which is, by the way, great, that's great, and this will be the Microsoft community, and this will be close to the Node or JavaScript community. So if you have a question and you get stuck, guess what? There will be a million of people who can answer your question over here. There will be a million of people, and maybe there will be hundreds of people over here. So you see the difference? So whenever you are choosing those frameworks, if you want to develop for server side, I would say look for the frameworks that are a little bit more mature, and look for the framework which have been around for a long time, which have tested the time, and which are not really that much into active development. I mean, I'm not saying that look for frameworks that have not been updated forever. I'm saying look for the frameworks that are not changing every single day or week or year. All right. And to be really honest, I actually, personally, I like Vapor. I think the syntax is a little bit weird. I mean, they are using promises and all that. That's perfectly fine. I just think that their future and promises makes it compact, but makes it not readable, to be really honest with you. All right. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe you like promises, maybe you like those kind of things. That's fine. For me, this works great. I love Express, and I think it is simple to use. I can go to websites like Glitch, and I can just play around with ExpressJS. So all the code I can type over here, and I can expose it. So this is all the code for Express. See that? And if I go to orders, I can post order, I can get orders. So you can see that all the code I can simply test without even installing a node or getting the package Express. I can just use online tools like Glitch or something to just start my server and see what happens. Obviously, this is not connected to database or anything, but you get the idea, right? So my recommendation for you would be to, if you are comfortable, if you are intermediate senior developer for iOS and you're comfortable with the whole iOS ecosystem, then don't just get stuck in that system. Think outside, like look at the other things for server side, for databases. Maybe you want to use Postgres instead of databases like SQLite or something. Maybe you want to use SQL Server. Maybe you want to use MongoDB. Maybe you want to use different things like Express and or .NET Core, Ruby on Rails. The question, if you have a question like, oh, which one is the best? No, there's no best. Right? All of them can do the same things. Some are a little bit more mature than the others, but all of them can do the same exact things. I personally like the .NET Core, and I personally like Express. I don't have any problems with JavaScript, or any other language for that matter. So language is never really a barrier, or it should not be a barrier for you also. So if you want to learn, and you should learn something outside of the Apple ecosystem, learn about server-side programming. It is really going to give you the opportunity to learn something new and learn something that is very important for your application. So I really hope that you like this small video. It's actually a little bit long video, but really hope that you enjoyed it and you find it useful. So thank you so much.